The sun was setting over the Nevada desert, painting the sky in shades of orange and red. The dry wind whispered across the barren land, carrying with it the faint scent of dust and heat. In the distance, a strange object descended from the heavens. It glowed softly, its surface shimmering like liquid silver under the fading sunlight. The craft moved silently without any noise or disturbance, as if it didn't belong to this world. And it didn't. On the ground below, a group of scientists and military personnel stood ready, their faces tense with anticipation. They had received no warning, no communication, just the sudden appearance of what could only be described as an alien ship. For days, radar operators had tracked its approach, but now that it was here, nobody knew what to expect. The air buzzed with nervous energy as the craft touched down gently on the cracked earth, sending up a small cloud of sand. Ryan Carter adjusted his glasses, trying to steady his breathing. He was a physicist, not someone used to high-stakes situations like this. His job at NASA usually involved studying data from telescopes or running simulations on black holes. But today he wasn't looking at numbers on a screen. He was staring at something real, an actual extraterrestrial vessel. Beside him, Megan Doyle fiddled with her camera, snapping photos while muttering to herself. She was a journalist who covered science stories for a major news outlet, and she'd been sent to document whatever happened next. "This is insane," Megan said under her breath, zooming in on the ship's smooth, metallic surface. "I mean, we're standing here, waiting for aliens." Ryan nodded absently, too focused on the scene unfolding before them. "Yeah, well, I guess we'll find out soon enough." The ship sat motionless for several long minutes, its glow dimming slightly as if it were settling into place. Then, with a soft hum, a section of the hull slid open, revealing a figure inside. It stepped out slowly, moving with deliberate grace. The being looked vaguely human. 2 arms, 2 legs, a head. But there was something off about it. Its skin shimmered, faintly, catching the light in ways that made it hard to look at directly. Its eyes glowed a pale blue, and when it turned to face the crowd, everyone froze. "Hello," the creature said, its voice calm and even. It spoke perfect English, though there was an odd resonance to its words, as if they came from somewhere, deeper than just its throat. "I am Kale, Envoy of the Celestial Accord." A murmur rippled through the gathered crowd. Some people exchanged wide-eyed glances, while others took hesitant steps backward. Ryan felt his heart pounding in his chest, but he forced himself to stay still. This was history in the making, and he didn't want to miss a single detail. Kyle raised one hand palm outward, in what might have been a gesture of peace. "I come not as a conqueror, but as a messenger. Humanity stands at a crossroads, and my purpose is to guide you." Megan lowered her camera slightly, her curiosity outweighing her fear. "Guide us? What do you mean?" Kale tilted his head, studying her with those glowing eyes. "Your species has achieved remarkable progress in a short span of time. You have unlocked the secrets of flight, harnessed the power of the atom, and begun to explore the stars. Yet you remain divided, consumed by conflict and greed. If left unchecked, these tendencies will lead to your downfall, and perhaps the destruction of others." His words hung heavy in the air, leaving everyone silent. Ryan frowned, trying to process what he'd just heard. Was this some kind of threat? Or was Kale genuinely trying to help? Before anyone could respond, Kale continued. "When humans shatter, even the gods shudder." His tone carried a weight that sent chills down Ryan's spine. "You possess great potential, but also great danger. My mission is to ensure that you choose wisely." The silence stretched on for what felt like an eternity. Finally, one of the military officers stepped forward, clearing his throat. "And how exactly do you plan to guide us?" he asked, skepticism evident in his voice. Kale regarded him calmly. "By sharing knowledge and offering counsel. However, the choice ultimately lies with you. I cannot force humanity to change its path. I can only warn you of the consequences." With that, Kale turned and gestured toward his ship. A beam of light shot out from the open hatch, projecting a series of images onto the ground. The holograms showed planets teeming with life, cities sprawling across vast landscapes and advanced technologies beyond anything humanity had ever imagined. But then the scenes shifted, showing those same worlds reduced to ruins, burnt-out husks of civilizations that had once thrived. These are examples of what happens when a species fails to overcome its flaws, Kyle explained. They reached for the stars only to bring ruin upon themselves. Do not repeat their mistakes. Ryan felt a lump form in his throat as he stared at the projections. He recognized the patterns, the signs of ecological collapse, the scars of war, the remnants of technology gone awry. It was hauntingly familiar, like looking into a distorted mirror of Earth's future. Megan clicked her camera again, capturing every detail. Her mind raced with questions, but she held her tongue, knowing this moment would define her career. Whatever Kale wanted, it was clear that his arrival marked the beginning of something unprecedented. As the holograms faded, Kale addressed the crowd once more. I will meet with your leaders tomorrow at the United Nations. Until then, consider, my words carefully. The fate of your world and perhaps others rests in your hands. With that, he turned and walked back into his ship. The hatch closed behind him, and within moments the craft lifted off the ground, disappearing into the night sky as quickly as it had arrived. For a while, no one spoke. The desert seemed eerily quiet after the commotion of the past hour. Ryan finally broke the silence, turning to Megan with a thoughtful expression. What do you think he meant by all that? Megan shrugged, still processing everything she'd seen. I don't know, but I'm pretty sure it's not good. If he's telling the truth, we're in serious trouble. Ryan nodded grimly. Yeah, and if he's lying. He trailed off, not needing to finish the sentence. Either way, humanity was playing a dangerous game, one they couldn't afford to lose. As the team began packing up their equipment, Ryan couldn't shake the feeling that this was only the beginning. Kale's warning echoed in his mind, each word heavier than the last. When humans shatter, even the gods shudder. Whatever challenges lay ahead, one thing was certain. Nothing would ever be the same again. The days following Kale's arrival were unlike anything Earth had ever experienced. News of the alien envoy spread like wildfire, dominating headlines and conversations across the globe. Social media buzzed with theories, fears, and excitement. Some people celebrated, seeing Kale as a savior or a sign of humanity's place among the stars. Others panicked, convinced that an invasion was imminent. Governments scrambled to respond, holding emergency meetings behind closed doors while issuing vague statements to the public. Ryan Carter found himself at the center of it all. NASA had assigned him to a small team tasked with monitoring Kale's activities and gathering information. It wasn't just scientists on the team. There were linguists, engineers, and even a few military advisors. Megan Doyle tagged along, too, claiming her role as a journalist gave her the right to document everything. In truth, she was as curious as anyone else, determined to uncover the truth behind Kale's cryptic warning. Kale, for his part, seemed unfazed by the chaos he'd caused. He stayed in New York City, residing in a secure facility provided by the United Nations. Every day, representatives from different countries came to meet with him, asking questions about his intentions and the mysterious celestial accord he claimed to represent. But Kale remained calm and composed, answering only what he deemed necessary. His patience was unnerving, as if he already knew how this would play out. One afternoon, Ryan and Megan joined the team for another session with Kale. They entered a large conference room where Kyle sat at the head of a long table, his glowing eyes scanning the faces of those present. The room felt tense, filled with people who didn't know whether to trust him or fear him. Thank you for coming, Kyle began, his voice steady and calm. Today, I will show you something important. Perhaps it will help you understand why I am here. Without waiting for a response, he activated a device on the table. A holographic display sprang to life, filling the air with images of distant planets. These worlds were breathtakingly beautiful, each one teeming with life and advanced civilizations. Towering cities stretched into the clouds, and spacecraft zipped through the skies. For a moment, everyone in the room was captivated, imagining what it might be like to live in such places. But then the scenes shifted. The vibrant cities crumbled into ruins. Forests burned, oceans dried up, and entire populations vanished. The once thriving planets became barren wastelands, their former glory reduced to ash and dust. The transformation was horrifying, leaving many in the room visibly shaken. These civilizations were much like yours, Kyle explained. They achieved great things, but they also made grave mistakes. Their hubris led them to destroy themselves, often taking other species down with them. My mission is to prevent the same fate from befalling Earth. Ryan leaned forward, studying the holograms intently. As a scientist, he couldn't ignore the parallels between these extinct civilizations and humanity's current trajectory. The signs were there: climate change, resource depletion, endless wars over power and territory. Kale wasn't just talking about some far-off future. He was describing what could happen within decades, or even years, if nothing changed. Megan scribbled notes furiously, her mind racing with questions. She raised her hand hesitantly, unsure if interrupting Kale was allowed. When he nodded at her, she spoke up. "Why are you showing us this? What do you want from us?" Kale's expression didn't change, but there was a hint of sadness in his glowing eyes. "I want you to see the consequences of your actions. You have the intelligence and creativity to solve your problems, but you lack unity. Your divisions weaken you, making it easier for destruction to take hold. If you wish to survive, you must learn to work together, not just as nations but as a species." His words hung heavy in the air, resonating with everyone in the room. Ryan felt a pang of guilt, thinking about the countless times he'd dismissed global issues as someone else's problem. Climate change, inequality, war, they were all abstract concepts until now. Seeing the evidence laid out so starkly made it impossible to look away. After the meeting ended, Ryan and Megan lingered outside the conference room, discussing what they'd seen. "It's hard to argue with what he's saying," Ryan admitted. "We're heading toward disaster, and we've known it for years. But actually doing something about it, that's a whole different story." Megan nodded, chewing on her pen thoughtfully. "Do you think he's telling the truth? Or is this some kind of trick to manipulate us?" Ryan shrugged. "I don't know. But either way, we can't ignore him. Whether he's here to help or to judge, he's forcing us to confront things we've been avoiding for too long." As the days passed, Kale continued sharing insights about the universe and the dangers humanity faced. He spoke of cosmic events that could wipe out entire solar systems, of rogue AI civilizations that had turned against their creators, and of ancient empires that had collapsed under their own weight. Each revelation added to the growing sense of unease among world leaders, but not everyone trusted Kale. Conspiracy theories flourished online, accusing him of being a spy or a harbinger of doom. Some governments grew suspicious, wondering if he was secretly scouting Earth for resources or vulnerabilities. Military forces around the world went on high alert, preparing for the worst-case scenario. Amid the tension, Ryan noticed subtle changes in Kale's behavior. While he remained polite and cooperative, there were moments when his composure seemed strained. During one particularly heated exchange with a skeptical diplomat, Kyle's glowing eyes flickered slightly, as if he were suppressing frustration. It was a small detail, but it caught Ryan's attention. Megan picked up on it too. "He's hiding something," she whispered during a break. "I don't know what, but he's definitely not telling us everything." Ryan frowned. Maybe he has his reasons. If he laid out every single detail, would we even believe him? Megan didn't answer, but her silence said enough. Both of them knew that humanity wasn't ready for the full truth. Not yet. Later, that evening, Ryan stayed late at the facility, reviewing data collected during Kyle's presentations. He pored over charts, graphs, and notes, searching for patterns or clues. Something about the holograms kept nagging at him, though he couldn't put his finger on it. Finally, exhaustion got the better of him, and he decided to call it a night. As he walked to his car, Megan called him. "Hey, "I just got a tip from one of my sources," she said, her voice low and urgent. "There's talk of a secret operation to capture Kale. They think his ship holds technology that could give whoever controls it an advantage over the rest of the world." Ryan stopped in his tracks, his heart sinking. "That's insane. If they provoke him, who knows what'll happen?" "I know," Megan replied. "But I thought you should hear it first. Be careful, okay?" Ryan promised to stay alert, but the news weighed heavily on him. Humanity's flaws were on full display again. Greed, paranoia, and short-sightedness threatening to undo whatever fragile progress had been made. As he drove home, he couldn't shake the feeling that time was running out. Kale's warnings weren't idle threats. They were urgent pleas for change. And if humanity refused to listen, the consequences would be catastrophic. The world was changing, and not for the better. Strange phenomena began occurring across the globe, leaving scientists baffled and governments scrambling for answers. Power grids failed without warning, plunging entire cities into darkness. Satellites malfunctioned, disrupting communication networks and weather forecasting systems. In remote areas, mysterious energy signatures appeared, glowing faintly in the night sky like ghostly beacons. At first, people blamed routine technical issues or solar flares. But as the incidents grew more frequent and widespread, conspiracy theories took hold. Some believed Kyle was behind it all, using his advanced technology to destabilize Earth's infrastructure. Others accused rival nations of testing secret weapons, sparking tensions that threatened to boil over into conflict. The truth, however, remained elusive. Ryan Carter found himself caught in the middle of the chaos. His team at NASA had been monitoring the anomalies closely, but their efforts yielded little clarity. The energy signatures defied explanation. They didn't match any known natural or artificial sources. What made matters worse was the growing pressure from government officials demanding immediate solutions. Every meeting felt like a battle, with accusations flying back and forth. Megan Doyle, ever the determined journalist, refused to sit on the sidelines. She traveled to affected regions, interviewing locals and gathering first-hand accounts. In Alaska, she met a fisherman who claimed to have seen strange lights hovering over the ocean. In Australia, farmers reported unexplained crop failures near areas where the energy signatures had been detected. Each story added another piece to the puzzle, but the bigger picture remained frustratingly unclear. One evening, Megan called Ryan with an idea. "What if these anomalies are connected to Antarctica?" she asked. "I've been looking into old research papers, and there are rumors about ancient artifacts buried under the ice. Maybe Kale knows something about them." Ryan frowned, intrigued, but skeptical. "Antarctica? That's a stretch. But I suppose it's worth checking out." The next day, Ryan brought the theory to his team. To his surprise, one of the senior scientists nodded thoughtfully. "There have been reports of unusual readings coming from that region," he admitted. "We dismissed them as geological activity, but now, maybe we should take another look." With approval from NASA, Ryan and Megan joined an expedition bound for Antarctica. The journey was grueling, with freezing temperatures and treacherous terrain making every step a challenge. But their determination kept them going. As they ventured deeper into the icy wilderness, guided by satellite data and old maps, they began to notice subtle changes in the landscape. Strange rock formations jutted out of the snow, their shapes too symmetrical to be natural. Finally, they reached a site marked by faint energy readings. Excavation teams worked tirelessly, clearing away layers of ice until something remarkable emerged. A massive structure half buried and covered in frost. It looked alien, with smooth surfaces and intricate carvings that glowed faintly despite the cold. This can't be real," Megan whispered, her breath fogging up her camera lens. She snapped photos rapidly, her hands trembling with excitement. Ryan knelt beside the structure, running his gloved fingers over its surface. "It feels warm," he said, astonished. "Like it's still active somehow." Inside the structure, they discovered chambers filled with advanced technology. Holographic displays flickered to life as they entered, showing images of a civilization long gone. These beings resembled humans in many ways, but their achievements far surpassed anything Earth had accomplished. They had mastered space travel, created sustainable ecosystems, and harnessed energy on a scale unimaginable to modern science. But the records also told a grim story. This civilization had thrived for centuries, only to collapse when internal conflicts spiraled out of control. Their leaders had grown corrupt, hoarding resources while neglecting the needs of their people. Wars erupted, fueled by greed and mistrust, until the planet itself turned against them. The artifact served as both a testament to their brilliance and a warning of their downfall. Kyle appeared unexpectedly as they explored the ruins, his presence startling but unsurprising. He watched silently as Ryan and Megan pieced together the fragments of history. When they finally turned to him, he spoke with quiet authority. "You see now why I came," he said. "This is what awaits you if you continue down your current path." Ryan felt a lump form in his throat. "Why didn't you tell us about this sooner?" "I wanted you to discover it yourselves," Kale replied. "Knowledge carries more weight when earned through effort. Now you understand the stakes, not just for Earth, but for the galaxy." Megan stepped forward, her voice steady despite the fear in her eyes. "If we're so dangerous, why bother helping us at all? Why not just stop us before we cause more harm?" Kyle's glowing eyes softened slightly. "Because potential exists within destruction. Humanity has flaws, yes, but also resilience. You are capable of great things, if you choose wisely." As they left the ruins, Ryan and Megan couldn't shake the weight of what they'd learned. The artifacts were proof that Kale's warnings weren't empty threats. They were based on hard truths drawn from the ashes of civilizations past. Yet even amid the despair, there was a glimmer of hope. If humanity could learn from its mistakes, perhaps it could avoid repeating them. Back at the research base, news of their discovery spread quickly. Governments demanded access to the site, eager to exploit the technology for their own gain. Military forces mobilized, ready to claim the ruins as strategic assets. Tensions escalated, mirroring the very divisions Kale had warned against. Ryan and Megan knew they had to act fast. They shared their findings with trusted colleagues, urging them to prioritize cooperation over competition. Megan wrote articles, highlighting the dangers of greed and division, appealing to the public to demand accountability from their leaders. Ryan presented the data to international organizations, emphasizing the need for unity in the face of existential threats. Kale watched from afar, his expression unreadable. He knew the road ahead would be difficult, fraught with resistance and doubt. But he also knew that humanity's survival depended on the choices they made now. Whether they rose to the occasion or succumbed to their flaws remained to be seen. For Ryan and Megan, the journey was far from over. They had uncovered the truth, but the real challenge lay in convincing others to embrace it. Time was running out, and the fate of Earth hung precariously in the balance. All they could do was keep pushing forward, hoping that humanity would prove Kale wrong, one decision at a time. The world was unraveling faster than anyone could have imagined. The discovery of the ancient ruins in Antarctica had sent shockwaves through every corner of society. Governments, corporations, and militaries scrambled to stake their claim on the alien technology buried beneath the ice. Rumors spread like wildfire, fueling paranoia and distrust. Some believed the artifacts held the key to unlimited energy. Others feared they were weapons capable of unimaginable destruction. Amid the chaos, Kale's warnings seemed more urgent and more ignored than ever. Ryan Carter and Megan Doyle found themselves at odds with forces far beyond their control. Back in Washington, D.C., Ryan attended a closed-door meeting where representatives from major nations argued over who should oversee the excavation site. The room buzzed with tension as diplomats exchanged sharp words and veiled threats. Military advisors leaned over maps, plotting strategies to secure the area. It was clear that cooperation wasn't on anyone's agenda. "We can't let this fall into the wrong hands," one official insisted, slamming his fist on the table. "If another country gets access to this technology first, it could tip the balance of power." "And what about the rest of us?" countered another, her voice dripping with sarcasm. "Are we just supposed to sit back while you monopolize it?" Ryan tried to intervene, raising his hand to speak. "This isn't about power or dominance," he said, his tone firm but calm. "It's about survival. If we focus on using this technology responsibly, we might actually stand a chance of avoiding the fate of those civilizations Kale showed us." His words fell on deaf ears. The officials continued bickering, each side digging in deeper. Ryan felt a pang of frustration, but forced himself to stay composed. He knew arguing wouldn't change anything, not here, not now. All he could do was hope that cooler heads would prevail before it was too late. Meanwhile, Megan worked tirelessly to expose the growing divide. She published articles detailing the escalating tensions, quoting experts who warned of the dangers posed by unchecked ambition. Her pieces resonated with readers, sparking protests in cities around the globe. People took to the streets, holding signs that read, "Unity over greed," and "Save Earth before it's too late." Megan poured her heart into her work, driven by the belief that public pressure could force leaders to act responsibly, but not everyone appreciated her efforts. One night, as she walked home from her office, a black SUV pulled up beside her. Two men in suits stepped out, their faces grim. They flashed badges identifying themselves as agents of a shadowy government agency. "Ms. Doyle," one of them said, his voice cold and clipped, "we need to have a word with you." Megan's stomach churned, but she kept her composure. "About what?" "You've been sharing sensitive information," the agent replied. "Information that could compromise national security. We're asking you to stop for your own safety." Her heart raced, but she refused to back down. "I'm just doing my job. If people don't know the truth, how can they make informed decisions?" The agents exchanged glances, then handed her a folder. Inside were photos of her apartment, her family, even her childhood home. The message was clear. They were watching her. Without another word, they climbed back into the SUV and drove off, leaving Megan shaken but resolute. Back at the Antarctic site, tensions reached a breaking point. A group of soldiers arrived, claiming jurisdiction over the area on behalf of their government. They set up barricades and began confiscating equipment, ignoring protests from scientists and researchers. Ryan watched helplessly as years of careful planning unraveled before his eyes. When he confronted the commanding officer, the man simply shrugged. "Orders are orders," he said. "Don't take it personally." Kyle appeared unexpectedly, materializing near the edge of the camp. His presence silenced the commotion as all eyes turned to him. For a moment, he stood motionless, observing the scene with an unreadable expression. Then he spoke, his voice carrying a weight that silenced even the wind. "You cling to your divisions even as the ground beneath you crumbles. Is this truly how you wish to define yourselves?" No one answered. The soldiers shifted uncomfortably. Their rifles lowered slightly. Scientists exchanged nervous glances, unsure whether to feel relieved or terrified. Kale stepped closer, his glowing eyes locking onto Ryan's. "You have seen the consequences of such behavior, yet you continue to repeat it. Why?" Ryan hesitated, searching for the right words. "Fear," he finally admitted. "People are afraid of losing control, of being left behind. And when they're afraid, they act selfishly." Kale nodded slowly, as if expecting this response. "Fear is a powerful motivator, but it blinds you to the greater danger, the destruction of everything you hold dear. Will you allow fear to dictate your actions, or will you rise above it?" Before anyone could respond, Kyle turned his attention to the soldiers. "Your orders come from flawed leaders, driven by pride and greed. Do you truly believe following them will protect your people, or will it hasten their demise?" The soldiers glanced at each other, uncertainty flickering across their faces. For a brief moment, it seemed as though Kale's words might break through their resolve. But then the commanding officer barked an order, snapping them back to attention. "Enough of this," he growled. "We're here to do a job." As the standoff continued, Ryan realized that reasoning with these men was futile. Their loyalty to their superiors outweighed any moral considerations. Frustrated and exhausted, he retreated to his tent, where he found Megan waiting for him. She looked pale and shaken, clutching the folder the agents had given her. "They threatened me," she whispered, her voice trembling. "They think I'm a threat because I'm telling the truth." Ryan sat down beside her, placing a reassuring hand on her shoulder. "You're not alone in this. No matter what happens, we'll face it together." Megan managed a weak smile, grateful for his support. "Do you really think we can make a difference, or are we just delaying the inevitable?" Ryan sighed, staring at the icy landscape outside. "I don't know. But giving up isn't an option. If we stop fighting, then Kale's warnings become self-fulfilling prophecies. We owe it to ourselves and to future generations to try." Over. The next few days, the situation worsened. Nations accused each other of hoarding alien tech, sparking cyber attacks and diplomatic breakdowns. Protests turned violent in some cities, with clashes between citizens and law enforcement leaving scores injured. In the midst of the turmoil, Kyle remained a silent observer, watching as humanity teetered on the brink of collapse. One evening, Ryan and Megan joined a small group of scientists and activists who had gathered secretly to discuss their options. They knew they couldn't rely on governments or militaries to act responsibly. Instead, they devised a plan to smuggle critical data from the Antarctic site and release it to the public. If enough people understood the stakes, perhaps they could force leaders to reconsider their priorities. It was a risky move, fraught with danger. But as Ryan looked around the room at the determined faces of his colleagues, he felt a spark of hope. Humanity was flawed, yes, but it was also resilient. If there was any chance of averting disaster, it lay in the courage of ordinary people willing to stand up for what was right. As the meeting concluded, Megan pulled Ryan aside. "What if it's not enough?" she asked, her voice barely audible. "What if we fail?" Ryan met her gaze, his expression steady. "Then at least we'll know we tried. Sometimes trying is all you can do." Outside, the wind howled across the frozen wasteland, carrying with it the echoes of humanity's struggles. The road ahead was uncertain, but Ryan and Megan knew one thing for sure. The choices they made now would shape the future, for better or for worse. The plan was risky, but Ryan Carter and Megan Doyle had no other choice. They knew they couldn't trust governments or militaries to act in the best interest of humanity. The data from the Antarctic ruins held vital information about the dangers facing Earth and the potential solutions hidden within the alien technology. If they could get it into the hands of the public, maybe people would demand change. Maybe leaders would listen. Late one night, Ryan and Megan met with a small group of allies at a makeshift camp near the excavation site. The air was tense, filled with whispers and hurried movements as everyone prepared for what lay ahead. Their goal was simple: retrieve the data stored on secure servers inside the main research facility and transmit it to independent journalists and activists around the world. It wouldn't be easy. Armed guards patrolled the area, and surveillance cameras monitored every corner. "We'll split into 2 teams," Ryan explained, pointing to a crude map drawn on a piece of paper. "One team will create a distraction to draw attention away from the facility. The other will sneak in and grab the data." Megan nodded, her face pale but determined. "I'll go with the second team," she said firmly. "I need to see this through." Ryan hesitated, worried about putting her in danger, but he didn't argue. He trusted Megan's instincts, and they both knew time was running out. "All right," he said finally. "Just stay sharp." As the group dispersed to carry out their roles, Ryan led the first team toward the perimeter of the site. They carried flares and smoke bombs ready to create chaos. When they were in position, Ryan gave the signal. Flares shot into the sky, lighting up the darkness like fiery comets. Alarms blared and guards rushed toward the commotion, shouting orders and scanning the horizon for intruders. Meanwhile, Megan and the second team slipped quietly into the facility. The building was eerily quiet, the hum of computers and monitors filling the silence. Megan's heart pounded as she followed, her teammates down dimly lit hallways, careful to avoid detection. Every step felt heavier than the last, the weight of their mission pressing down on her chest. They reached the server room without incident, thanks to a combination of luck and quick thinking. One of the team members, a tech expert named Alex, got to work copying the data onto an encrypted drive. Megan stood watch, her eyes darting nervously between the door and the security cameras mounted on the walls. "This is taking too long," she whispered anxiously after several minutes. "What if someone comes?" Alex glanced up briefly, his fingers flying over the keyboard. "Almost done, just a few more seconds." Finally, the download completed. Alex ejected the drive and handed it to Megan, who tucked it securely into her jacket pocket. "Let's move," she urged, already heading for the exit. But as they turned the corner, they froze. Two guards stood blocking their path, weapons raised and expressions grim. "Stop right there," one of them ordered, his voice cold and commanding. For a moment, everything seemed to stand still. Megan's mind raced, searching for a way out. Then, without warning, the lights flickered and went out, plunging the hallway into darkness. Someone, likely Kale, had triggered a power surge, giving them a chance to escape. Megan grabbed Alex's arm and pulled him forward, sprinting past the startled guards and into the shadows. Outside, the distraction team had succeeded in drawing most of the security forces away from the facility. Ryan spotted Megan and Alex emerging from the building and ran to meet them. "Did you get it?" he asked, breathless. Megan nodded, pulling the drive from her pocket. "We've got it. Let's get out of here." As they regrouped and fled the site, Kale appeared once again, standing silently in the distance. His glowing eyes watched them leave, unreadable as always. Whether he approved of their actions or not remained unclear, but his presence offered a strange sense of reassurance. Back at a safe house miles away, the group gathered to review the stolen data. What they found was both alarming and enlightening. The alien artifacts contained blueprints for technologies that could revolutionize energy production, medicine, and environmental restoration, but only if used responsibly. There were also warnings embedded in the files, detailing how similar civilizations had misused such power and brought about their own destruction. Megan uploaded the data to secure channels, sending it to trusted contacts across the globe. Within hours, the information began circulating online, sparking outrage and calls for action. Protesters flooded the streets, demanding transparency and accountability from their leaders. Social media exploded with hashtags like Save Earth and Unite Orty, uniting millions of voices in a shared cause. Governments, caught off guard by the sudden wave of public pressure, scrambled to respond. Emergency summits were called, bringing together representatives from nearly every nation. For the first time in years, discussions focused not on competition or dominance, but on collaboration and survival. Even skeptics couldn't ignore the overwhelming evidence laid bare before them. Kale addressed the assembled leaders during one of these meetings, his tone grave yet hopeful. "You have seen what happens when greed and division take hold," he said, his voice echoing through the chamber. "But you have also shown the capacity for unity and resilience. The choice is yours. Continue down the path of destruction, or forge a new future for yourselves." His words resonated deeply, striking a chord even among the most hardened politicians. Slowly, reluctantly, agreements began to form. Nations pledged to dismantle nuclear arsenals, redirect resources towards sustainable development, and share knowledge freely. It wasn't perfect, far from it, but it was a start. Ryan and Megan watched from the sidelines, exhausted but hopeful. They knew the road ahead would be difficult, requiring constant vigilance and sacrifice. But for the first time, they allowed themselves to believe that humanity might actually rise to the occasion. "I never thought I'd see something like this happen," Megan admitted one evening, sitting beside Ryan in a quiet corner of the safe house. "People coming together, putting aside their differences. It almost feels impossible." Ryan smiled faintly, his gaze fixed on the horizon. "Nothing worth doing is ever easy, but if we can keep pushing forward, maybe, just maybe, we can prove Kale wrong." Megan leaned back, closing her eyes. "Do you think he believes in us? Or does he think we're doomed no matter what?" Ryan shrugged, unsure how to answer. Maybe it doesn't matter what he thinks. What matters is what we do next. Over the following days, the world began to shift. Governments implemented policies aimed at reducing carbon emissions and protecting natural resources. Scientists worked tirelessly to adapt the alien technology for practical use, focusing on renewable energy and medical advancements. Activists kept the pressure on, ensuring that promises made during the summits weren't forgotten. Amid the progress, however, challenges persisted. Not everyone supported the changes. Some resisted fiercely, clinging to old ways of thinking. Corporations fought to maintain control over profits, while rogue states defied international agreements. It was clear that the battle was far from over. Still, Ryan and Megan refused to give up. They traveled the world, speaking at conferences, and meeting with communities affected by climate change and inequality. Their message was simple. Humanity's greatest strength wasn't its technology or wealth. It was its ability to adapt, learn, and grow. Kyle observed silently from afar, his expression unchanged. Whether he approved of humanity's efforts or simply waited to see how events unfolded remained uncertain. But one thing was clear. His arrival had sparked a chain reaction, forcing people to confront truths they had long ignored. As Ryan and Megan stood side by side one evening, watching the sunset paint the sky in shades of orange and pink, they felt a sense of cautious optimism. The journey ahead would be long and fraught with obstacles, but they were ready to face it, together. Months passed, and the world began to change in ways both subtle and profound. The agreements made during the emergency summit started to take shape, transforming policies and reshaping societies. Renewable energy projects sprang up across the globe, replacing coal plants and oil rigs with solar farms and wind turbines. Nations worked together to restore damaged ecosystems, planting billions of trees and cleaning polluted rivers. For the first time in decades, there was a glimmer of hope that humanity might turn the tide against environmental collapse. But progress wasn't easy. Resistance came from unexpected places, powerful corporations that stood to lose profits, politicians clinging to outdated ideologies, and communities fearful of change. Protests erupted in cities worldwide, with some demanding faster action and others rejecting it altogether. Violence flared in certain regions, as those who opposed the new initiatives clashed with supporters. Despite the challenges, Ryan Carter and Megan Doyle refused to back down. They traveled tirelessly, speaking at rallies, meeting with leaders, and documenting every step of humanity's fragile journey toward unity. Kyle remained a constant presence, though he rarely intervened directly. He watched silently as nations debated policy changes and activists pushed for accountability. His glowing eyes seemed to pierce through the chaos, observing not just actions, but intentions. People had begun to see him less as a threat and more as a silent judge, a figure who embodied the consequences of their choices. One evening, Ryan and Megan found themselves back in New York City, invited to address the United Nations once again. This time, they weren't outsiders looking in. They were part of the conversation, respected voices advocating for cooperation and responsibility. As they walked into the Grand Hall, they noticed how different the atmosphere felt compared to months ago. Gone was the tension and distrust. Instead, there was a cautious optimism, a shared understanding that failure was no longer an option. When it was their turn to speak, Ryan stepped up to the podium, his voice steady despite the weight of the moment. "We've made progress," he began, scanning the room filled with delegates from around the world. "But we can't afford to stop now. Every day we're running out of time. If we don't stay committed to these changes, if we let fear or greed guide us again, we risk losing everything." Megan followed, her words carrying the passion of someone who had seen both the best and worst of humanity. "This isn't just about saving Earth," she said, her gaze sweeping over the crowd. "It's about proving that we're capable of something greater than division and destruction. We've been given a second chance. Let's make it count." Their speeches earned applause, but Cale's reaction was harder to read. When the session ended, he approached them outside the building, his shimmering form catching the fading sunlight. Your efforts have brought you closer to survival, he said, his tone measured yet sincere. But remember, true change requires vigilance. One misstep could undo all you've achieved. Ryan nodded solemnly. We know, and we'll keep fighting, no matter what. Cale studied him for a moment, then turned to Megan. You've shown courage and determination, but the real test lies ahead. Will you continue to act selflessly when the cost becomes unbearable? Megan hesitated, unsure how to respond. She wanted to believe humanity would rise to the occasion, but she couldn't ignore the doubts lingering in her mind. I don't know, she admitted quietly. But I do know one thing. Giving up isn't an option. Kyle didn't reply immediately. Instead, he reached into a compartment on his wrist and withdrew a small object, a crystalline device that pulsed faintly with light. He held it out to Ryan and Megan, his expression unreadable. This is a gift, he explained. A fragment of my ship's core. It contains knowledge and potential beyond your current understanding. Use it wisely, for it can accelerate your progress or hasten your downfall. Ryan accepted the crystal cautiously, feeling its warmth against his palm. Why are you giving this to us? He asked, suspicion mingling with gratitude. Because your fate is yours to decide, Kyle replied. The celestial accord cannot intervene indefinitely. My mission here is complete. Before they could ask more questions, Kyle turned and walked away, his form dissolving into a soft glow before vanishing entirely. The silence that followed was heavy, filled with the realization that humanity was truly on its own now. In the weeks that followed, scientists studied the crystalline device, uncovering secrets that promised to revolutionize technology and science. Breakthroughs came rapidly. Clean energy sources became more efficient, medical treatments cured diseases once thought incurable, and space exploration advanced by leaps and bounds. Humanity's reach extended further than ever before, fueled by a renewed sense of purpose. Yet even as the world celebrated these achievements, Ryan and Megan couldn't shake the feeling that the hardest battles were still to come. Greed hadn't disappeared. It had simply gone underground, waiting for an opportunity to resurface. Inequality persisted, with marginalized communities often left behind in the rush toward progress. And while international cooperation had improved, old rivalries simmered beneath the surface, threatening to boil over at any moment. Despite these challenges, Ryan and Megan remained steadfast. They continued to write articles, give speeches, and advocate for fairness and transparency. Their message evolved, focusing not just on survival, but on creating a better future. One where humanity thrived not because of dominance, but because of compassion and unity. One night, as they sat together under a starry sky, Megan broke the silence. Do you think we'll ever really be safe? Or will we always be walking this tightrope between success and disaster? Ryan looked up at the stars, his thoughts drifting to Cale's final warning. I don't think safe is something we'll ever achieve completely. But maybe that's okay. Maybe the point isn't to eliminate risk. It's to learn how to live with it responsibly. Megan smiled faintly, leaning her head on his shoulder. That sounds like something Cale would say. They sat in comfortable silence for a while, watching the constellations twinkle above. The road ahead was uncertain, but for the first time they allowed themselves to dream of a brighter tomorrow. Not just for themselves, but for generations to come. Years later, when historians reflected on this pivotal era, they called it the turning point. It was the moment when humanity faced its darkest truths and chose to fight for redemption rather than succumb to despair. Though mistakes were made and struggles endured, the lessons learned during those turbulent years shaped a new chapter in Earth's story, one defined not by division, but by resilience and hope. And somewhere among the stars, Cale watched silently, his glowing eyes reflecting the light of distant suns. Whether he approved of humanity's choices or merely observed them remained unknown. But perhaps deep down, he allowed himself a flicker of pride, for even gods could shudder when confronted with the indomitable spirit of those who dared to shatter their chains and rebuild.